Just sacrifice 32 minutes to an individual that doesn't give a damn about anybody's time but hers.
As Mayor Tiffany Henyard makes headlines once again in the turbulent world of Dolton, Illinois, what was supposed to be a routine village board meeting on a rainy Monday night turned into a high-octane political protest full of accusations, power struggles, and unfiltered frustration from both residents and trustees. Prepare yourself for a season of scandal and drama that could surpass the most captivating reality TV episodes. Even though it was raining, the storm inside was far more fierce as emotions neared a breaking point, turning the routine activities into a full-fledged showdown. Henyard that was proudly labeled. With her signature flair, the super mayor entered the boardroom to find the room humming with accusations and dissension, with complaints ranging from alleged financial mismanagement to power struggles that some characterized as dictatorial. Locals and officials who were obviously fed up with her contentious leadership arrived, as participants expressed their ire at Henyard for prioritizing his own goals over the welfare of the Dolton and disregarding the community's pressing needs in favor of self-promotion. The atmosphere was electrifying. Critics cited her extreme self-branding, high-profile stunts, and choices that they claimed to have sidelined both trustees and constituents, doing more harm than good. The meeting swiftly turned into a spectacle as trustees publicly fought with Henyard, with each complaint being refuted or countered. Residents screamed over each other to vent their anger over perceived abuses of power, ranging from financial overspending on pet projects to what they perceived as attempts to consolidate control through unconventional tactics. Some accused her of ignoring dissenting voices, violating procedural norms, and using public funds to support her image, which heightened tensions, with some supporters defending Henyard's actions as audacious and necessary to upend traditional governance methods and critics viewing her as reckless, self-serving, and disconnected from the realities of a town struggling with debt and infrastructure issues. The charged atmosphere revealed a widening divide in Dolton. Every raised voice and pointed finger added to the flammable mix, creating a chaotic display of democracy and chaos at its most raw, guaranteeing that the controversies surrounding Henyard's leadership will continue to ripple far beyond that stormy on Monday evening.
Mayor Henyard to arrive, and we'll give another 5 minutes.
Mayor Tiffany Henyard delayed the meeting with...
It seemed as though the community had been waiting for a spark, and this delay proved to be the perfect one. The meeting started 30 minutes late because of what seemed to be a small issue, but it served as a catalyst, unleashing a wave of simmering animosity that exploded into raw, unfiltered hostility. One of the neighbors took the microphone during a scheduled remark, and their voice echoed around the tense room as they publicly expressed their frustration of many people were present. Yet we just gave up 32 minutes to someone who only cares about her own time. The comment was like a thunderclap, causing the audience to start moving. As one attendee after another took the microphone, their words were laden with conviction and roiling frustration, resulting in a deluge of rage and despair. Voices shuddered as they spoke out of a strong sense of outrage and resolve rather than fear. Complaints evolved into rallying cries with a clear phrase at their core: the 2025 Clean House. This was a forceful call to action, a clear and unambiguous demand for accountability, not just a way to vent concerns. With intense speech, one passionate speaker hammered home the point, calling on the audience to act quickly and decisively at the elections. We cannot allow her to continue being the mayor. Enough is enough, the audience burst in. The air was heavy with the tension of a community at its breaking point, energized by the collective will to bring about change because of their unbridled and raw emotions, which reflected a collective choice that the status quo had become unacceptable. As other speakers ascended the platform to reinforce the message, echoes of criticism echoed through the crowd. Their complaints ranged from little administrative errors to more significant leadership failings that felt had directly damaged their town. The crescendo reached new heights when prominent local voices spoke to their neighbors, not only to assign blame, but also to demand swift, coordinated action. They emphasized the significance of accountability and personal responsibility, urging those in attendance to transform their outrage into real change. Calls to hold the leadership accountable evolved into a passionate appeal for voters to make their voices count at the ballot box was about more than simply discontent. It was about taking back their town and its autonomy, with every word spoken signifying a step closer to overthrowing what the community perceived as an unsustainable status quo. This meeting intended for local governance had turned into a symbolic battleground. There was a tumultuous mixture of anger and determination in the room, characterized by an uncompromising conviction that their town was worthy of improvement. Speaker after speaker reiterated the same passionate demand for reform, demonstrating that Tiffany Henyard's time and influence were swiftly coming to an end with each contribution. The mood was unanimous. Change was not simply desired in terms of design, it was essential. Increase the already rising tension, laying the groundwork for what could have been a pivotal moment in the village meeting and possibly in the course of the town itself. The people had spoken up, not in whispers, but in a shout that wanted to be heard, signaling that the breaking point had been reached and that action, togetherness, and an unwavering call for improved leadership were the only ways to move forward.
Know this, I am gonna come through on a landslide just like Trump did.
In response to the residents' harsh criticisms and unrepentant demands, Mayor Tiffany Henyard, who never backs down from a confrontation, stood tall with a resolute defiance that left no room for ambiguity. Her tone was dripping with disdain, and her steely confidence signaled her refusal to be intimidated or silenced. Far from caving in to the demands of the crowd, she took the opportunity to reassert her authority and ensure that her critics would not have the last word without a fight. It's amazing how disrespectful you people just were at the microphone. This opening statement was only the prelude to a display of unwavering audacity that refused to give up even an inch. In her scathing speech, Henyard said, "I have the seat now, whether you like it or not. I am your mayor." Her voice was firm and resolute, a declaration that was equal parts defiance and challenge, a declaration of dominance that sought to remind everyone who held the reins of power. Henyard then made a daring and controversial comparison, comparing herself to former President Donald Trump, highlighting the similarities between their leaders' philosophies, their divisive reputations, and the tumbling scandals that seemed to follow them both. Just as Trump had famously hinted at a silent majority backing him against a barrage of criticism, Henyard presented herself as a strong, misunderstood leader fighting against what she called unfair and unjustified attacks, alluding to her own version of a political landslide victory. She tried to frame the backlash against her as the bitter protest of a vocal minority that refused to accept her. Her comparisons to Trump further fueled the fire, causing divisive reactions among the audience for her supporters. Her self-styled image as a strong, misunderstood figure was an affirmation of her resilience, a badge of honor worn proudly by a leader determined to withstand the slings and arrows of criticism from her detractors. But it was just another example of her tendency to double down in the face of criticism. She had been elected to serve the community, and her words, while powerful, hit a different chord with those in attendance. As the room simmered with conflicting emotions, the true impact of Henyard's remarks became apparent. Far from calming tensions or bridging divides, her speech served to deepen the fault lines between her supporters and critics. Many in the audience saw her remarks as yet another indication of her growing detachment from the struggles and concerns of the very community she claimed to lead. "She doesn't see us," one attendee muttered under her breath, capturing the sentiment of many who felt increasingly removed from a leader who seemed more interested in her own image than in their collective well-being. As she left the stage, her defiant words echoed in a room divided not only by ideology, but also by an ever-widening gap between a mayor and the community she was supposed to serve. It was a moment that captured the complexities of her tenure. Bold yet contentious, strong yet divisive, a mayor who ruled with unwavering confidence, but risked losing the trust of the very people who had once elected her. She has seen herself as a trailblazer, a misunderstood figure who must be vindicated by history. But to many in the room, her speech was more about self-preservation than leadership. Tension, a fiery mixture of dissatisfaction and defiance that had been building for months, was finally released when one courageous Dolton resident stood up and declared, "We are Dolton citizens, not your subjects or employees, and since you are leaving with this resolute declaration, you will no longer treat us in this manner." It was as if a match had been struck. The bold challenge to Mayor Tiffany Henyard electrified the atmosphere. The sheer audacity of the statement reverberated through This was no typical village meeting, and what transpired next made it clear that this was not just about one comment or one person's frustrations. The exchange encapsulated a deeper struggle that had been festering in Dolton for years, and the fiery confrontation was emblematic of a community's unwillingness to be silenced and a leader's steadfast determination to assert authority in the face of mounting opposition one by one. Henyard, standing at the front, was visibly unmoved, her expression a steely mask of defiance, but her silence for the moment seemed more a reflection of her characteristic refusal to concede. Residents joined the chorus, their voices shaking not out of fear but out of anger and conviction. Henyard's contemptuous comments and unwavering attitude seemed to feed the crowd every time they interacted, fanning the flames of resistance. Their words were not just protests, but demands for a change they had long sought but never received. "We're tired," one attendee shouted from the back of the room, tired of being ignored, tired of the arrogance, and tired of the lies. This sentiment resonated powerfully, bringing the room together in a collective acknowledgement of their shared grievances for Henyard. This meeting was supposed to be business as usual, but it had turned into a public reckoning, and her signature confidence, frequently hailed as her supporters' strength, now felt like a wall of detachment to those who had gathered to confront her, and her critics' sharp, unapologetic, and occasionally dismissive responses seemed to reinforce their perception of her as a leader more concerned with power than the welfare of her constituents. Nevertheless, Henyard refused to back down, delivering scathing retorts that only deepened the divide. "You elected me," she said in an ironic tone. "If you don't like it, you can vote me out next time." The clash of wills between Henyard and the residents wasn't just a disagreement. Rather, it was a combustible collision between a community desperate to regain its voice and a mayor committed to maintaining control. It was evident that the town's residents were united in their rejection of the status quo. One resident said, "This is our town, not your kingdom." The crowd responded with a roar of approval, their cheers shaking the room's foundations. This confrontation was not just about Dolton. It was a microcosm of democracy in its raw form, characterized by bold declarations, unwavering resolve, and an unrelenting call for accountability. It also showed a community on the verge of revolt. It was no longer merely political theater. Rather, it was a battle for the soul of Dolton, where residents demanded that their government return to the ideals. By the end of the night, when the meeting came to an end, the lines had been drawn even more starkly. Henyard left the room with her authority intact, but her reputation further battered while the residents dispelled her because they felt a sense of solidarity and shared purpose. The intensity of the moment revealed more than just frustration. It exposed the community's determination to stand up against what they perceived as overreach and arrogance. Her stance, far from quelling dissent, seemed to further cement her place as a deeply divisive figure. There was an unmistakable sense that the evening had marked a turning point, a collective awakening that made clear that the people of Dolton would not be silenced no matter how loud their mayor tried to be. Henyard was affected for a long time by the town being under EFI investigation, and the discussion continued long after this specific meeting by May 2024. The public's dissatisfaction was exacerbated by administration inquiries over village spending, according to the report. Former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot had also looked into Henyard financial operations and discovered a significant shortfall in the village's general budget. The town's general fund balance dropped from $5.22 to $3 or 61 million USD. Residents' demands for the Henyard to close are only exacerbated by the financial difficulties, their concerns about an agenda that hasn't been fully investigated, and the lack of transparency surrounding the township's finances. The 65 million USD deficit life foods also raised concerns about excessive use of the village credit card, as evidenced by the number of purchases for which receipts were missing. Another shocking discovery was that $43,000 Americans bought goods. Henyard had been the supervisor of 2 trustees in the township on Amazon on January 5, 2023. The long-running power struggle between Henyard and the trustees reached a fever pitch when Christopher Gonzalez and Carmen Carroll skipped a board meeting, preventing a vote to choose a new trustee to take over the position. The already contentious situation was further complicated when a village spokeswoman declared that Henyard's attempt to appoint Ronald B. as the new police chief without board approval was illegal. Gonzalez inquired as to why there was such a rush to get us to a meeting, and he and Carroll were worried about giving Henyard too much authority, particularly when it came to the Illinois Law Enforcement Training and Standards Board. Even declared that Lacey was not legally qualified to serve as a police chief due to a lack of documentation and no current requalification, compounding the legal issues surrounding the former interim chief. Given Byrd's previous legal actions alleging political or employment retaliation, the board recommended in the letter that she remove him from public service until the necessary paperwork was filed and his eligibility was established during the legal battles. Regarding staffing, the landlord, Janetta Hall, revealed that the couple had not paid rent since August, resulting in thousands of US dollars in back rent and late fines. Although Hall's attorney refuted this claim, the judge initially allowed Burge SDR to serve as interim chief for 30 days before eventually overturning several of her decisions. Hull also claimed that Henyard and Woods had changed the garage door code in the locks to prevent her from accessing the property, highlighting the precariousness of her situation. Even her annual turkey giveaway, which was supposed to be a gesture of goodwill, was criticized by some as a way to deflect attention from the ongoing scandals, failed PR tactics. Though many people enjoyed the giveaway, it only served to highlight the deep divisions in the community. The political manipulation and public relations stunts clearly had no effect on the public, adding to the already explosive mix of Pioneer self-promotional stunts that reached new heights. Giant Reliable Gun questioned the event's timing, claiming it was a last-ditch effort to win over the people while Sid stepped on important township concerns. Some locals expressed their annoyance by drawing comparisons between the numerous posters and the propaganda strategies used by Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, which emphasized the hen's dominating presence and authority on the public perception of the village. The residents felt outraged and unfair when Henyard called the police on workers, removing banners featuring her image and the title Super Mayor. The billboards, which were supposed to reinforce her public image, instead became a symbol of her disconnection from the concerns of her constituents. However, we weren't against her having a security detail. Though her decision to run for re-election is not surprising to those familiar with her combative leadership style, it has undoubtedly sparked a heated public debate. Sada, who was once hailed as a trailblazing figure in Dolton, the town's first female mayor, and the symbol of change, is now embroiled in a storm of criticism that calls for accountability and change. The story of Tiffany Henyard is far from over, as she recently announced that she would run for re-election, has deeply polarized the community she promised to lead. Many believe her bid is an intentional attempt to repair her legacy and regain control of the narrative that portrays her as a strong leader. Despite the claims of critics, a growing number of Dolton residents see Henry's campaign as a turning point that offers an opportunity to address the scandals and moral failings that have plagued her tenure and determine whether the town will continue to support a leader who many believe has betrayed their confidence amid accusations of corruption. Dolton is caught between continuing Henyard's vision, albeit one that is cloaked in suspicion, and beginning anew with a new beginning that places a premium on accountability and transparency. Her re-election campaign represents the unbridled boldness and ambition of a leader who refuses to accept the consequences of her own scanned SC. For her, it is a test of her strength and determination, an opportunity to prove her detractors wrong, and a bold attempt to cement her legacy in the community. For Henyard, the outcome of this election could determine not only her fate but also Dunn's future. Therefore, supporters who are inspired by her boldness and unwavering refusal to back down argue that she is a visionary leader fighting against political systemic barriers and sabotage, while her opponent sees her re-election campaign as a last-ditch attempt to hold onto power and minimizes her valid complaints, claiming that the community is tired of her leadership. The intense political climate in Dolton and the drama surrounding Henyard's campaign have drawn attention from all over the state, turning this small-town race into a larger debate about the ethics of leadership and the accountability of public authorities as the crucial election approaches. Will the election be a referendum on her leadership, marking the end of her controversial reign, or will Henyard weather the storm of scandal, reclaim her story, and win a second term? As her recently announced re-election campaign surfaced within the scandalous political turmoil, Tiffany Henyard's already compelling narrative is far from over. Her decision to run for another term is not surprising to those who know her defiant leadership style, but it has certainly sparked a heated debate. Since this election marks a watershed in Dolton's history and could have a significant impact on the town's political and social landscape for years to come, the stakes go far beyond campaign pledges and catchphrases that highlight the greater challenges of leadership in the face of hardship, ambition unbridled by responsibility, and the resulting fortitude of a community pursuing justice. Public debate, with many viewing her bid as a calculated attempt to rehabilitate her complicated by accusations and mounting controversy. She was once hailed as a trailblazing figure in Dolton, the town's first female mayor, and a symbol of progress. The storm of scrutiny divided the community, allowing them to regain control of the narrative and present herself as a strong leader despite the critics' claims. As the community decides whether to continue supporting a leader who many believe has betrayed their trust, a growing number of Dolton residents view Henyard's campaign as a turning point that offers an opportunity to address the scandals and moral failings that have occurred. Allegations of corruption, poor management, and power abuse have put Dolton in a difficult position during his reign. This re-election campaign is more than just a political battle. It is a test of her resolve and endurance, a chance to prove her detractors wrong, and a bold attempt to solidify her place in the town's history. However, to G detractors, it represents the unbridled ambition and audacity of a leader who refuses to acknowledge the weight of her own controversies and has the power to determine not only her fate, but also the future of Dolton itself. Supporters of Henyard, who are inspired by her audacity and unwavering will, argue that she is. There is a big question. Will Henyard weather the storm of scandal, regain her reputation, and win a second term, or will this election serve as a referendum on her leadership, ending her contentious tenure? The political climate in Dolton is tense, and the drama surrounding her campaign has captivated the entire state. Meanwhile, her opponents see her re-election bid as a last-ditch attempt to stay in power and ignore the legitimate complaints of a populace tired of her rule. No matter the result, it is evident that this election represents a watershed in Dolton's history and may have a long-lasting effect on the political and social fabric of the community for years to come. The scents go beyond campaign slogans and promises that represent the greater difficulties of leadership in the face of hardship and ambition that is unbridled by accountability and the community's resolve to seek justice.